Like, subscribe and share Tree Fanfiction audiobook channel for next part. Chapter 91. At the intersection, hundreds of cars were stuck there, not moving a meter for a long time. It's not because there was a car accident here, nor because a superhero is fighting a supervillain in front. The real reason was traffic jam. New York is one of the most congested cities in the world, and traffic jams are common. Especially on some roads with relatively heavy traffic. If you are unlucky, you may end up staying in the same place for several hours. A driver with a good attitude may just play with his mobile phone or take a nap, but for some impatient drivers, this situation is very difficult to endure. Fuck. This is why I always don't want to go out on weekends. I always run into traffic jams at this time of week, and they last for a long time. In a convertible sports car, a boy of about 16 or 17 irritably complained to his female companion, who was about 27 or 28 years old. "Oh, sweetheart, it's just a traffic jam, don't worry about it. The weekly rest day is also the day your parents come home. If we want to have fun, we have to go out." The female companion coaxed him with a smile. "But it's so annoying to be stuck here all the time, especially with a bunch of poor guys driving cheap cars. Can you believe it? I just saw someone driving a Mazda. People say that people who drive Mazdas are prone to traffic jams, and today I finally saw it." The young man said unhappily, slumped down in his seat, and stared at the sky in boredom. "If I had known the traffic jam would be this bad today, I should have turned around here an hour ago. How about we take this time to have some fun?" Seeing this, the female companion suddenly smiled charmingly and reached her delicate hand quietly towards the boy's thigh. "Oh!" At this moment, the boy suddenly sat up from the chair and let out a cry of surprise. "Okay." The female companion was very confused by this. She hadn't even touched him yet, so why was the young master reacting so strongly? Turning around, I saw this unknown rich young man looking at the sky with shock and longing, muttering to himself, "I want that too. I must ask my dad to buy it for me." Following the boy's gaze towards the sky, the female companion couldn't help but widen her eyes. There was actually a car flying in the sky. A car with a cool shape, no wheels, and 4 thrusters installed under the car that continuously spew out tail flames. When hundreds of cars on the road were stuck at an intersection, a car actually floated slowly over everyone's heads. Yes, this mysterious flying car is moving very slowly, probably at the speed of a normal person riding a bicycle, but for vehicles that are stuck on the road and can hardly move, this is already considered as amazing speed. Moreover, any person with normal IQ would probably not think that the maximum speed of the hovercraft that floats steadily in the air without any shaking is only this high. This is true. Just as the hovercraft was slowly passing the intersection and almost reaching the last section of the congested road, the tail flame from the thrusters suddenly grew larger, the speed of the entire vehicle increased instantly, and it disappeared from everyone's sight in a flash. It was also accompanied by obvious air waves and violent sonic booms. The speed is so fast that it is beyond the measurement of the naked eye. Perhaps to avoid accidentally hitting tall buildings in the city due to excessive speed, the hovercraft first increased its altitude before accelerating, and its flying position was more than 10 meters higher than 80% of the buildings in New York. Many people present captured the entire process with their mobile phones. There are quite a few concept products of flying cars. Over the years, many giant car companies have launched related concept car models. Unfortunately, 9 out of 10 cars reach their limit at a height of more than 10 meters. If they fly a little higher, the body of the car will begin to shake violently, which is very unstable. A flying altitude of more than 10 meters does not have much practical value in a city full of tall buildings. The remaining one could still fly, but it usually ran out of fuel and fell down within 3 minutes. Like today's flying car, which is almost more stable than a running car on the ground and accelerates instantly without any sense of lag, let alone seeing it, I have never even heard of it. If I am not mistaken, the car seems to have the logo of the Osborn Group printed on it. The boy lowered his head to look at the steering wheel in his hands and the luxurious interior of the car. Before today, he was quite satisfied with this expensive convertible sports car and loved it very much. But now, he suddenly felt that his luxury car was no different from other cheap cars on the road. After the hovercraft accelerated and flew a long distance in an instant, it slowed down again. After all, if it drove too fast, it would not be able to see the scenery outside. Harry sat in the middle cabin of the hovercraft, overlooking the panoramic view of New York while drinking a glass of expensive red wine. In fact, he didn't like drinking, and he didn't think that drinking high-end liquor could show his taste. In fact, in Harry's opinion, the real value of this bottle of wine was less than 1/10 of its selling price. He just wanted to cater to the current atmosphere and enjoy the joy of spending money. After all, money was just a string of numbers to Harry. There is no driver in the driver's seat of the hovercraft because the hovercraft itself is equipped with a highly intelligent AI chip, which perfectly realizes autonomous driving. It doesn't matter if you are a bit of a germaphobe about autonomous driving, as the car has a mechanical structure that forces you to switch to manual driving. Boom! At this moment, someone suddenly knocked on the door of the hovercraft. How could someone knock on the door from dozens of meters above? Harry knew who was knocking at the door because he had seen it through the holographic projection system. A man in gold and red armor. Iron Man, Tony Stark. It's normal for him to come and take a look at a UFO that has been hovering over New York for such a long time. Mr. Stark, would you like a drink? Harry opened the hatch and raised his glass in invitation. It's you, Harry. When I saw the Osborn Group logo printed on this car, I guessed it was you. Tony took off his helmet and sat down opposite Harry very naturally. The sofa is nice, much more comfortable than the one in my private jet. If you like it, we can customize a set for you at a fair price. Harry smiled. Forget the sofa, but I really want to buy your car. Tony picked up the wine glass on the table and poured himself a glass of wine. That's perfect. Once the test flight is over, we'll hold a product launch conference for the hovercraft. If you want, Mr. Stark, we can reserve one for you. Harry suggested. In fact, with Tony's intelligence, it is not difficult to build a real anti-gravity car, but Tony doesn't like to study this technology. Just like Stark Industries has the ability to build the most advanced and best sports cars in the world, but he still bought an entire warehouse of luxury sports cars. Great, I'll buy the most expensive one. Tony readily accepted Harry's proposal. He didn't ask the price and Harry didn't mention it either because they were all the same. Chapter 92. By the way, Mr. Stark, why didn't you show up when the Rahcon building collapsed last week? Harry suddenly asked Tony. Well, I was busy with other things at the time. Otherwise, I would definitely not have missed that great show. Being a hero is like that. You have to fly from one end of the world to the other every day. There are always things to do and criminals to catch. Tony stretched and said. But this is my responsibility. Stark Industries leaked too many weapons to terrorist organizations around the world. I must destroy them all. At this moment, Jarvis' alarm suddenly sounded. Sir, the rebels in a certain area of Congo have used a large amount of arms produced by Stark Industries. Look, it's what I said. I have to go. I wish you all the best at your press conference. Tony stood up from his seat and prepared to get off the bus. Before leaving, he seemed to remember something and turned back to Harry and asked, Do you want to hold the launch of the hovercraft at the open-air venue of the Stark Expo? We won't charge you the venue fee this time. Let me make it clear in advance, Tony said with a serious expression, this is not to thank you for telling me about isotopes last time, but because I was impressed by your hovercraft. Harry naturally agreed to Tony's suggestion. The launch venue of the hovercraft should be chosen in an open area. In the whole of New York, there is no more suitable open-air venue than the Stark Expo. Not to mention it's free. Of course Harry has no shortage of that little money, but the feeling of spending money and not spending money is completely different. Not to mention that the publicity and promotion effect of the Stark Expo itself is much stronger than simply holding a press conference. According to the original historical trajectory, the venue of the Stark Expo should have been destroyed by Ivan Vanko's attack by now, and the Expo, which was originally scheduled to be held for a whole year, only lasted for a few months before it ended hastily. Now that Ivan has been dead for a long time, the exhibition is naturally held as usual and is still very popular, although in recent months there has not been the same level of shock as the previous Harry exhibition of androids. However, there are many new technologies that are almost as shocking as bionic humans. For example, Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards showed people an unstable molecular fiber material. This fiber will react with some of the energy matter around it and actively imitate the properties of that energy, and has almost unlimited ductility. But it is limited to imitation, and the strength of the material itself is not significantly different from that of common composite fibers. As for its purpose, it is naturally to make exclusive clothing for people with superpowers. If the person wearing it can turn into a fireman, then the clothes will also turn into fire. If it is a superpower that can change the body shape, then the clothes will also grow larger and smaller, and even the same applies to invisibility. If you stop using your superpowers, the costume will automatically return to its original form. In fact, from a technical point of view, this thing is much higher than Harry's android, but because normal people have no demand for this thing, it was highly discussed when it was first exhibited, but after a while, few people continued to pay attention to it. It is worth mentioning that the mutant nation of Genosha has shown great interest in this material and has plans to establish long-term cooperation with Mr. Fantastic. The hovercraft with the Osborn Group logo hovering over New York for more than an hour naturally attracted the attention of more than just Iron Man. Almost half of the people in the city witnessed the hovercraft passing by and were full of curiosity about the latest experiment of the Osborn Group. Especially those billionaires with a net worth of billions are very interested in the hovercraft, which can both show their status and improve travel efficiency. After all, they are the main consumer group of the hovercraft. Ordinary people with ordinary family conditions can only be curious. At this moment, countless reporters swarmed in front of the Osborn building, and Chloe, who led the work of Osborn's publicity department, received them. In the past, if the person being interviewed was a bionic man, reporters would feel surprised and uncomfortable. But today, bionic people have appeared in more and more companies, and the Osborn Group has bionic people holding key positions in almost every public occasion. Reporters have long been accustomed to talking to bionic people face to face. In fact, if you ignore the numbered uniforms and LED indicator lights on the foreheads of every bionic person, they are no different from normal humans. In fact, in most cases, it is easier to get along with androids than with humans, because androids do not have negative emotions such as meanness, arrogance, irritability, jealousy, etc. that often appear in humans. No matter how embarrassing the questions asked by the reporters are, the androids will not show any displeasure, which allows many reporters to boldly ask questions that would likely get them beaten if they asked them. Of course, they are also more leak-proof than humans. Information that should not be said will never be leaked out in any form, and there is no such thing as letting something slip. This is a headache for reporters. It is difficult to induce the other party to say something that is easy to cause ambiguity and increase the topic as before. Ms. Chloe, today many citizens witnessed a UFO with the Osborn Group logo printed on it. It looked very much like a car. Could you tell me if it was really made by the Osborn Group? In response to reporters' questions, Chloe said seriously, regarding the UFO rumors that are currently spreading everywhere, I would like to clarify this. That's not a UFO, but the latest product of the Osborn Group, a hovercraft. Although everyone was prepared, when the moment of confirmation came, the reporters present still showed excited expressions. Is there finally going to be a flying car that can actually be put on the market? Ms. Chloe, may I ask what stage of experimentation your company's hovercraft has reached? Are there any safety risks? The hovercraft doesn't even have a front window. How is the driver supposed to see the outside world? A series of questions were asked simultaneously by countless reporters in the audience, and the scene became extremely noisy for a while. Please be patient, everyone. Chloe spoke up to interrupt the reporters' questions. I know everyone has many questions about our hovercraft, but I'm sorry, I can't reveal too much information to you today. Please wait for the hovercraft press conference in 2 days. At that time, we will announce all the information about the hovercraft. This statement was like a bolt from the blue, stunning all the reporters. I originally thought that today's floating car was just a test drive experiment of the Osborn Group, but I didn't expect it to be the final product. There's a product launch in 2 days? Are they already ready to go on sale? How come I didn't hear any news about it before? Is your Osborn Group's confidentiality work so good? Chapter 93. After learning the time and location of the press conference, the reporters rushed back to their own newspapers as fast as they could. Everyone wanted to be the first to write a report about the upcoming official launch of the hovercraft. Overnight, the news that Osborn Group was about to launch a floating car spread all over the country. It is hard not to be curious about this technological product that can almost revolutionize the automotive industry. Ordinary people just watch the fun, while rich people start to weigh their wallets, wondering if they can afford it. After all, the flying cars that have appeared in the past were not only of poor quality, but also extremely expensive, almost reaching a sky-high price of $1 billion per car. Taking into account all kinds of miscellaneous maintenance costs, those with a net worth of less than $10 billion can forget about it. There are only a few hundred people in the world whose personal assets exceed $10 billion. Even if we include the so-called hidden rich people, there will be no more than 1,000 people at most. But the number of people who want to buy hovercrafts is far more than this number. However, due to their lack of money, not many people can afford it, which has led to the failure of this market to develop from the beginning to the end. Now the Osborn Group plans to join the game. With its various leading technologies such as bionic humans, prosthetic modifications, smart firearms, and SCV engineering mechas, everyone will regard Harry Osborn as a super genius comparable to Tony Stark. All products produced by the Osborn Group maintain extremely high quality while also having low prices. At least to outsiders, Osborn is simply losing money by selling its products. They have every reason to believe that once the hovercraft is on the market, the price will definitely not be as abstract as those previous concept products. But the problem is that even if the Osborn Group has leading technology and can lower costs, it will probably still cost at least 100 million yuan to sell it. There are many people who can afford it, but it is hard to say how many people can afford to support it after buying it. Soon, the day of the press conference arrived. Top figures from all walks of life received invitations from the Osborn Group to watch the press conference. Among them were James Rhodes from the military, New York's deputy mayor, state legislators, many representatives from the business community, and countless celebrities. A sea of people gathered in the open-air exhibition hall of the Stark Expo, waiting for the press conference to begin. It can be said that nearly half of the upper class in New York have come here. If a crazy supervillain suddenly appears at this time and takes out lethal weapons such as bombs or poison gas, it will definitely cause unprecedented big news. In order to avoid that situation, Pepper, the current CEO of Stark Industries, dispatched 150 bionic guards to be responsible for on-site security. That's right, Stark Industries also bought Osborn's androids, and was one of the largest buyers. However, they did not start gradually laying off human employees after buying the bionic people like other companies did. Neither Tony nor Pepper had any intention of firing the employees. Instead, they increased the employees' original salaries. All in all, with bionic guards, on-site security is not a problem. Boom! At this moment, a roar suddenly came from the sky, causing everyone to look up at the same time. In the sky, 3 hovercrafts with different appearances slowly descended to the center of the venue. The car in the middle is the red-field Excalibur that Harry is riding in. The car on the left is more square than the Excalibur and looks very symmetrical. The overall color scheme is mainly green and white with red embellishments. Although the exterior design is not as cool and technological as the Excalibur, it still looks good. The floating car on the right is probably the most eye-catching of the 3. Its body is very large, a circle larger than an ordinary bus, so that the other 2 can land steadily on the display stand, but it can only float in the air. Wow! These cars are so cool! Just looking at their appearance is a pleasure. I can't wait to ride in one and fly for a while. In the crowd, a young master from a wealthy family looked at the 3 hovercrafts with burning eyes. I hope that the Osborn Group's press conference can provide test drives. The hatch of the red-field Holy Sword in the middle opened automatically to both sides, and 2 figures, a man and a woman, walked out. The woman is naturally the audience's old friend Chloe. Next to her was a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. Unlike Chloe, he did not have a circular LED light on the right side of his forehead, which meant he was not a bionic man. Perhaps in order to promote bionic people, almost all the staff at every press conference of the Osborn Group are bionic people. Seeing a real person on stage at this time made the audience feel a little uncomfortable. Welcome everyone to the Osborn Group's product launch. I'm Chloe, the head of the publicity department. After introducing herself, Chloe immediately began to introduce the middle-aged man's identity. This is Lei Bushi, the development director of the hovercraft project. He will introduce the relevant data of the hovercraft to everyone. Hello everyone, I'm Lei Busy. Now please let me tell you about the basic configuration of the hovercraft. We have launched a total of 3 models of hovercraft, each equipped with an automatic driving system, built-in air conditioning and refrigerator. Reeves smiled proudly. He came to the front of the green and white hovercraft and introduced it. This is a model for the civilian market. We named it Atris. It has 7 seats including the driver's seat. When fully loaded, the Atris can reach a top speed of over 680 km per hour, and a combined range of 2,700 km. Even if it runs at top speed throughout the entire journey, which will result in a higher energy consumption rate, the mileage under extreme conditions will not be less than 2,000 km. Lei Bushi said shockingly. This means that with the Atris, one trip is enough to cross most of the United States without having to refuel. 680 km per hour. Normal range 2,700 km. Extreme range 2,000 km. The audience was all shocked. What the hell is this data? Not to mention comparing it to a car, you have to know that the range of a general civilian helicopter is only about 1,000 km, and a speed of 200 to 300 km per hour is considered very fast. Osborn's hovercraft at least doubled in size when it came up, which was truly amazing. This couldn't help but make the audience start to worry. With a body of Atris that is not much bigger than a regular off-road vehicle, it must have the power to propel the car into the air and also have such a terrifying endurance. The energy technology used is definitely not simple. It is conceivable that the cost of this car must be an astronomical figure. The price will only get more horrible. As if he could see the audience's concerns about the price, Lei Jun suddenly smiled and said, although there are many other parameters and configurations that have not been introduced, the most important thing for everyone should be how much it will cost to drive this car home, right? Our boss, Harry Osborn, often told us that many times, the purpose of selling products is not to make money, but to make friends with customers. We sincerely hope to establish a friendship of mutual trust with consumers. Some companies will cut off products that are obviously of good quality and can bring a good experience to consumers because of low profit margins, but that is not the path we at Osborn Group want to take. Having said that, Lei Bushi's face became serious and he spoke loudly. So, the price of Atris is only $1,999 million. Chapter 94. 1999. Lei Jun's words were like a bolt of thunder that struck the hearts of all the audience. It's not 1 billion, nor is it the 100 million estimated by many people, but 19.99 million. Less than 20 million. The cost of this hovercraft must be more than 20 million, right? I'm afraid Osborn is really selling cars at a loss. Although this price is still more than 99% of the world's people can earn in their entire lives, it is really a very affordable price as far as the flying car category is concerned. 1999, produced by Osborn, you can't buy it and you won't be fooled. The billionaires who were originally worried about whether there was enough money in their wallets now all showed surprised expressions. This hovercraft is so affordable that you have no choice but to buy it. In particular, a young man from a large group stood up and asked to buy a car on the spot. I can't wait any longer, I want to buy an Atrus now. Sir, I know you are in a hurry, but please wait. We haven't finished introducing the various systems in the car, including the stability of the hovercraft during takeoff and landing, the safety of long-term flight, and artificial intelligence driving. Upon seeing this, Lei Jun quickly signaled the young man to calm down. However, before he could finish his words, the other party interrupted him. Shut up and take my money. There was not only one person who wanted to order the hovercraft as soon as possible. Many people present expressed their willingness to buy it. I didn't expect that everyone would be so eager to buy the hovercraft. Thank you very much for your recognition. Faced with the grand occasion, Lei Jun was grinning so hard that he could hardly close his mouth. In all his years in the industry, this was the first time he had seen such a crazy product. Although I really want to sign a car purchase contract with you directly, I can't do that. The Osborn Group will never sell products to consumers without knowing anything about them. That is irresponsible behavior and a lack of confidence in its own products. At this point, Liebston paused and asked with a smile, besides, aren't you curious about the functions of the other two types of hovercraft? As soon as these words were spoken, the audience suddenly came to their senses. The configuration and price of the first floating car were far beyond their expectations, which completely aroused their desire to buy. They couldn't wait to get a floating car as soon as possible, so much so that they almost forgot that there were two other models. Lei Jun knew that there was no need to introduce the information of each hovercraft in detail at this time. This was a product with no competitors, and there was no need to rely on defeating peers to compete for the market like the projects he had taken over in the past. Put out all kinds of messy parameters and compare them with those of competitors one by one. There is no need for this now. You can win by just talking about the more prominent features. So Libus introduced Atrus in just a few words, and then he raised his hand slightly upward. He motioned the audience to look at the huge vehicle floating in the air. This is a floating vehicle with black as the main color and orange as the secondary color. Its appearance is even more square than Atrus, and it is very close to a standard rectangular block. It is more like a mobile independent cabin than a car. This vehicle is called the Surveyor. It is a floating vehicle designed for transportation purposes. The entire vehicle body is covered with high-strength alloy armor. It is equipped with 6 machine guns and an intelligent missile interception system. It can protect the personnel inside from harm even under the firepower attack of a reinforced regiment. The maximum speed is over 1,200 km per hour, and the maximum range can reach kilometers. The Surveyor can not only transport soldiers to the front line on the battlefield, or rescue the wounded under enemy fire, but also perfectly undertake the task of transporting strategic materials such as gold, scarce resources, and scientific research materials. If you need to travel or do business in the Middle East or other war zones, a Surveyor will be your best choice to protect your personal safety. Below the stage, sitting in the military representative seat, James Rhodes' eyes lit up. This thing is great. With this Surveyor hovercraft, why do we need a Hercules? Why do we need a C-17? With its speed and endurance, it can even transport a troop directly to the enemy's rear without anyone noticing. As the director of the Weapons Development Department, no one knows better than Rhodes the strategic value of surveyors on the battlefield. The value is definitely no less than that of bionic soldiers. It depends on what its final selling price will be. Sale price $3,500 million. When Bush shouted out the price of the surveyor, Rod made a decision instantly that the military should purchase a large number of this type of hovercraft. Then, Jun began to introduce the last one. Redfield Holy Sword, limited to 10 units worldwide. Extremely cool exterior and extremely luxurious interior, top speed of 9,999 km per hour, top range of kilometers, priced at $1 million. The Holy Sword is positioned as a pure luxury souvenir, and its configuration is higher than Atrus, but in fact not much higher. At this point, the press conference came to an end and the whole process was very brief. Tomorrow, the hovercraft store opened by the Osborn Group in Uptown New York will officially open. We will provide comprehensive insurance and warranty services, as well as test drive services before transactions. At the same time, we are also negotiating with state governments to open hovercraft stores in 25 major cities across the country, so that we can always get fuel when we run out of fuel on long-distance trips. Jun finally told the piece of information that all the audience cared about most. There is another point that needs to be noted. If there is a demand for manual driving of the hovercraft, the hovercraft drivers need to be retrained because the operating logic of the hovercraft is different from that of the car. But don't worry, we will provide driving school services. Of course, these additional services will definitely be charged separately. Jun did not say it explicitly, nor does he need to say it explicitly. This is the industry rule and everyone understands it. This product launch conference ends here. Thank you again for coming. Please wait for the opening of the floating car store tomorrow. After the press conference, the audience was still excited and couldn't calm down for a long time. There should be no one in the world who doesn't want a flying car, right? People once thought that it would take more than a decade for a hovercraft to be available, but unexpectedly, the Osborn Group created it without making any noise. Now, car companies all over the world, no, I'm afraid even airlines are going to get nervous. The full live broadcast and related reports of the press conference went viral around the world in an instant. Since the end of the press conference, the discussion about the hovercraft has reached an unprecedented high. Along with this, there are also advertisements released by the Osborn Group. Are you still annoyed by the delays caused by traffic jams? Are you still troubled by the limited range of private aircraft in the city? Have you ever imagined that when you are stuck in traffic, your car can fly up and skip that section of the road? The Osborn floating car will realize traffic freedom for you. Osborn Hovercraft, you deserve it. Chapter 95. The advent of the hovercraft instantly made the Osborn Group the undisputed king in the field of top luxury cars and private jets. Rolls-Royce, Bugatti, Aston Martin, those once highly acclaimed luxury cars, have now become a thing of the past. All wealthy people who have the habit of collecting luxury cars have ordered Osborn Group's floating car without exception. Those who can afford it buy one of each of the 3 models, and at the very least, they will at least buy an Atrus. Even if the wealthy have no special interest in collecting cars, considering the great convenience of the hovercraft being able to freely navigate in the city, people with sufficient capital will basically order a hovercraft. Atrus orders soon exceeded 80 units, and even the Redfield Sword, priced at $9,999 million, was sold out within the first week of the store's opening. There weren't many wealthy people who bought the surveyor, only a dozen or so people did, but the military was clearly quite interested in the surveyor. As soon as the press conference ended, Rhodes approached Harry and wanted to take a surveyor back to the military for detailed testing. It turned out that the surveyor's super-thick armor and intelligent missile interception system demonstrated extremely strong resistance to attacks. Even if you don't use it as a transport vehicle, it can still be used as a mobile shield on the battlefield. The firepower of the 6 built-in machine guns is not inferior to that of armed helicopters, and the 360-degree attack range of the vehicle body is within it. Just imagine, what kind of scene would it be if such a large armored vehicle, which can fire machine guns in all directions, flew directly into the enemy's formation at a speed close to the speed of sound, and even went in and out of it 7 times? The military was very satisfied with the surveyor's performance and directly signed a contract for 50 vehicles. In addition, according to the agreement, Harry specially left a Redfield Excalibur for Tony, and Tony happily transferred 100 million to the Osborn Group's account. As for why there is an extra 10,000, don't ask, the answer is that Stark likes integers. Moreover, the news about the hovercraft is gradually spreading all over the world, and countless wealthy people overseas have also shown great interest in it, which is another huge source of income. A few days ago, Secretary Maya Zhou reported the recent revenue situation to Harry. First of all, there is the Bionic Man project. To date, the Osborn Group has launched more than 30 different models and prices of bionic men, including more expensive personal elite bodyguards and cheaper and more affordable family companions. This type of bionic man has only the function of companionship and no other abilities, and the cheapest materials are also used. A companion bionic man costs only $7,999, and its appearance and body shape can be customized for an additional fee. All in all, excluding the bionic people produced and used by the Osborn Group itself, 1.8 million units have been sold worldwide. Among them, there are nearly 100,000 bionic people in New York alone. It is quite common to see people carrying bionic people when shopping. The second is the prosthetic project. So far, more than 400,000 disabled people have regained their health through prosthetics, not including 30,000 disabled soldiers who have received military-grade prosthetics. These 30,000 Cybo soldiers are naturally all equipped with Osborn Group's smart firearms. The future of universal cyborgization and building a cyber society is not far away, but it is not near either. It takes a long time and subtle changes for healthy people to accept the idea of cutting off a body part and replacing it with a mechanical part. It won't be long before people gradually discover that those paraplegics who used to have to rely on others to feed them not only stand up again after being fitted with prosthetics, but also gain stronger physical strength than ordinary people. Sooner or later, people will take the initiative to request the installation of prosthetics. Not only that, there is a high possibility that the Paralympics will be stronger and more intense than the normal Olympics. As for whether the Paralympics will ban prosthetics from participating. If even transgender people can participate, what else is impossible? The SCV engineering mecha had to catch up with the construction progress of the time teleporter in the early stage, so the first few batches of SCV were manufactured in secret. By the time they were launched on the market, it was already very late. The total sales volume was not large, only more than 10,000 units were sold, but the number of back-end reservations was quite explosive. Although the SCV on the market is a castrated version of Harry, which makes it lose the ability to work in various extreme environments such as deserts, glaciers, vacuums, and planets with different gravity, it has won the favor of the construction and mining industries as soon as it was launched on the market thanks to its hexagonal functional panels that can dig, build, transport, and even fight. In addition, Kenosha's trading relationship with the Osborn Group is still maintained. Every once in a while, a large amount of medicines and various daily necessities are shipped to Kenosha, and the income is also huge. The huge income was converted into countless resources to feed back to Harry, allowing him to expand the desert base in Arizona without any worries. As the Osborn Group developed steadily and positively, the time soon came for acquiring new technologies. In his dream, in the boundless space, Harry sat on the branch of the tree of knowledge, carefully savoring the new information that the fruit of knowledge gave him. Time passed little by little, and Harry finally received all the information about the new technology, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. I didn't expect that the technology we obtained this time was actually from the Red Alert world, and it was the Soviet Union's magnetic storm coil. The Tesla coil, also known as the Tesla coil, is a powerful defensive weapon based on the blueprints of the legendary inventor Nikola Tesla. A standard magnetic storm coil is about 12 meters high and has a spherical diode on top. When attacking, it ionizes the air between the coil diode and the target, forming a loop and generating lightning to destroy the target from a distance. The range is usually within 2 kilometers. The power of lightning depends on the size of the coil itself and how much electricity it consumes. In theory, the larger the coil, the stronger it is. What surprised Harry was not only the power of the magnetic storm coil itself, but also the fact that based on the technical principles of the magnetic storm coil, a huge magnetic storm technology chain could be derived. Wireless power transmission technology, magnetic tanks, magnetic storm infantry, magnetic warships, magnetic submarines, even electromagnetic guns may be created based on this. This means that Harry can now finally start building a real army. In the past, he only had bionic soldiers and smart guns, as well as the super soldiers of the terrorist mobile team. Their combat effectiveness was certainly not weak, but they still lacked heavy firepower weapons. The firepower of the Zhou-style intelligent shotgun is indeed not inferior to that of a rocket launcher, and can be considered a heavy firepower weapon for individual soldiers. However, the gap is very obvious compared to big guys like tanks and battleships. Of course, Harry could also choose to buy it. Although private transactions of tanks and fighter jets are not common, they do exist and are not illegal. However, this kind of transaction usually only allows you to buy old weapons that have been retired and eliminated by the military. It's good enough if they can be used, but don't expect to use them in war. Even if it is possible, you can't buy much in this way. If you want to purchase large quantities of arms, you can only seek cooperation with the military. Obviously, there was no reason for the Osborn Group to suddenly buy so much arms, and Harry certainly would not do something that would write the words "Come and check me" on his face. The best and only solution is to build it yourself. Chapter 96. In the elevator, Max Dillon clasped his hands together and opened them again and again, not knowing where to put them. He is very nervous now because he just received a notice not long ago saying that the chairman wants to meet him. This surprised and delighted Dillon. Who is the chairman? That's Harry Osborn, the super genius who saved the company and invented several epoch-making technologies. He was just an assistant under Dr. Otto, but Harry called him to meet alone instead of with Otto. Dillon felt flattered. In fact, he had been grateful to Harry for a long time. This could be traced back to before the androids were officially sold, when Dr. Octopus told Harry about an electrical director who had usurped Dillon's research results. Although Harry did not immediately overhaul the company's management in order to ensure internal stability of the group, it was no problem to let an electrical director resign, which was just the right way to make an example of him. Dillon is not good at considering those complicated things. From his perspective, after Harry learned about the unfair treatment he had suffered, he fired the electrical director who had oppressed him without saying a word, and also raised his own salary to the level of a senior researcher. How could Dillon not be grateful to Harry? Where in the world could he find such a conscientious boss? To this he only wanted to say one thing: with Harry coming, the group is saved. With Harry coming, there is fairness. Another point is that Dillon's feelings can be said to be deeper than anyone else in the Osborn Group. That is, the atmosphere among employees within the group is much more harmonious and intimate than before, and behaviors of discrimination and exclusion have disappeared. In addition to the corruption problem being properly resolved, this is largely because more and more bionic people are joining the work environment of employees at all levels. It sounds like something is not right. Employees of other companies wish there were no bionic people in the world, but how come Osborn has improved its working environment because of bionic people? In fact, it is very simple. First of all, no Osborn employee has had his job replaced by a bionic person, especially those employees who have been transformed with prosthetic bodies. They are backed by a 50-year labor contract and are not afraid of being laid off. There is no inherent conflict of interest. Secondly, the addition of the androids directly took over the hardest and most tiring work, which greatly reduced the work pressure of the rest of the people, and Harry also changed the salary structure of the Osborn Group. Generally speaking, an employee's salary is far lower than the actual value he creates for the company. The reasons behind this are very complicated. It is not simply about exploiting employees, which does account for part of the reason, but it is not the only reason. In short, Harry has increased the ratio of rewards to employees. Although it is not yet the ultimate society where all the value created by employees belongs to themselves, it is barely close to the system of getting paid according to work. This salary adjustment was the largest salary increase in the history of the Osborn Group, and it directly made Harry popular among all Osborn employees. Reducing work pressure and increasing salaries at the same time will certainly make everyone feel better, but in Dylan's opinion, the last reason is the decisive one. The android itself. Harry designed the androids to be so human and friendly. Their performance at work is completely different from the coldness and rigidity that are common in the stereotype of robots. They are friendly, quick-thinking, and can adjust their language models according to the mood of humans in various environments. No matter when and where they say something, it will not make people feel uncomfortable. Speaking human language means having a very high EQ, which is higher than IQ. What's even more amazing is that the EQ of bionic people is simulated by their IQ calculations. It is difficult to change anything if there are one or two colleagues with high emotional intelligence in the company, but if you can see friendly colleagues everywhere in the company and you can be sure that they have no ill intentions, the atmosphere in the entire workplace will naturally become harmonious. The power of science and technology is fully demonstrated at this time. Who says that technology must be cold and ruthless? Dylan admired Harry as his boss from the bottom of his heart. When he heard that Harry wanted to meet him today, he was extremely excited. Soon, the elevator arrived at the top floor of the Osborn building. Dylan carefully fixed his clothes and adjusted his hair in front of the elevator glass before coming to Harry's office. Dylan took a deep breath and knocked on the door carefully. "Come in." Harry's voice came from inside the door. Dylan had heard this voice countless times in various live interviews. Pushing the door open and walking in, Dylan immediately saw Harry sitting behind the desk. "Boss, Max," Dylan reports in. While reporting, Dylan could not hide the excitement on his face. "Dr. Otto always praises you, Max. He says you are the best electrical expert in the Osborn Group, so I wanted to show you this," Harry said as he placed his hand on a spot on the desk. Suddenly, more than a dozen holographic projection screens appeared out of thin air around Dylan, displaying various design drawings, technical principles, and completed virtual models. Magnetic storm coil? Is this a defensive device designed based on the Tesla coil principle? No, it's not exactly the same. Many details in the data are different. What a bold design! It maximizes the power of the current released by the coil. After reading the information, Dylan frowned slightly and hesitated to speak. "Boss, this idea has great potential, but..." Seeing him like this, Harry knew that Dylan thought that the magnetic storm coil was his own invention and design, and was worried that pointing out its shortcomings too bluntly would make him angry. So Harry smiled nonchalantly and said, "I came here to hear your thoughts. If you have any shortcomings, feel free to speak up." After taking a reassurance pill, Dylan continued speaking. "The energy utilization rate of the magnetic storm coil is too low. A large amount of electricity is wasted in each attack. Moreover, the materials and mechanical structure used are too retro." "Well, that's right, just as I thought." Harry nodded in agreement. After all, the world of Red Alert is set in World War II. No matter how much high-tech is used, it cannot cover up the fact that the basic industry is backward. Many things are made very crudely, and are obviously the result of trade-offs. "Max, if this project is given to you, do you have the confidence to make up for all its shortcomings?" Harry suddenly asked. Dylan was stunned when he heard this. After he came to his senses, an ecstatic expression appeared on his face. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes. I have confidence. I promise that I can improve the magnetic storm coil. Not just the magnetic storm coil. I want you to develop more military applications based on the technical principles of the magnetic storm coil, such as tanks, fighter planes, and warships, the more the better." Harry said seriously. "I need you to use all your talents, Max." Chapter 97. Washington, SHIELD Triskelion Building. Nick Fury stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the floor-to-ceiling window while listening to Hill's report behind him. "As of today, we have found a total of 327 Hydra undercover agents, 14 of whom are missing. The remaining 313 undercover agents have all been arrested and sent to the raft for detention. The raft that Hill mentioned is a prison located on an isolated island outside the New York Bay, which is used to detain many high-tech criminals and superpowered criminals. Some time ago, Fury asked Alpha Team to stop chasing Dario the Minotaur and give priority to eliminating the Hydra spies hiding in SHIELD. Afterwards, a strict internal review was started, led by Fury's trusted agents including Alpha Team, Coulson, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Mockingbird, etc. It was a surprise to find that there were too many problematic people, and more than 300 undercover agents were found in a short period of time. There were many conflicts in the process of uncovering the undercover, and S.H.I.E.L.D. suffered heavy losses. Even so, they could only barely clear out the Hydra from the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters and several important facilities. It would take a long time to complete the investigation of branches around the world. To be honest, if Fury didn't distrust mutants from the bottom of his heart, he would have planned to go to Genosha to ask Professor X for help several times. With Professor X's ability, it only takes a moment to find out how many undercover agents there are in SHIELD, and he can even directly control all the Hydra members around the world to commit suicide. Unfortunately, given the latter's personality, the possibility of him agreeing to do such a thing is very slim. In addition, Fury is extremely wary and fearful of Professor X, so this is ultimately just a fleeting idea that is then nipped in the bud. "Hill, it's been quite some time since the ice floe found by the Alaska branch thawed. How is it now?" After listening to the report, Fury turned around and looked at Hill and asked. "Dr. Simmons said that the people in the ice floe have an extremely strong vitality and recover incredibly quickly. They should be able to wake up in the next 2 days. What's the identity verification result? Are you sure it's him?" Fury asked with a serious expression. "Through the fingerprint files, photo materials, and blood test results left over from the last century by S.H.I.E.L.D. At this point, although Hill's face remained calm, the excitement in his eyes was difficult to conceal. "It can be determined that it is him. The man in the ice is Captain America, Steve Rogers." Upon hearing this, Fury finally let go of the worry that had been hanging in the air since the moment he heard the news about the iceberg. No matter how sure he was about whether the person in the ice was Captain America, he could not be sure without solid evidence. Captain America is actually still alive and has been frozen in ice for more than 70 years. Although the ice that froze him was discovered by a group of Inuit in the Arctic Ocean and was still drifting on the sea just before it was discovered, this is inconsistent with the records in the S.H.I.E.L.D. files that Howard had searched the Arctic Ocean many times without success. But this is not a particularly strange thing. After all, the environmental climate has changed significantly in recent decades, and many of the huge icebergs on the Arctic Ocean have melted. Maybe Captain America was originally frozen in a huge glacier, and accidentally fell into the sea after the outer layer of the glacier melted not long ago, and drifted along the ocean current to the Inuit tribe. In short, after 70 years of twists and turns, Captain America, who was once thought to have died in battle, is back. Fury attaches great importance to this famous superhero and symbol of free spirit. Especially after S.H.I.E.L.D. had just fallen into a panic-stricken depression due to the civil unrest, they were in desperate need of a spiritual pillar to make their wavering faith become firm again. Otherwise, every agent will begin to believe that all the missions they have done before are actually helping Hydra unknowingly, and they will doubt themselves and the existence of SHIELD. Then, even if the Hydra undercover agents in the organization are cleared out by then, SHIELD will still not be able to operate. Fury must give everyone a shot of confidence and make them firmly believe that the existence of SHIELD is of absolute positive significance to the world. Even though Hydra was involved in the founding of SHIELD, and even though Hydra has infiltrated SHIELD for such a long time, it cannot change the fact that SHIELD's goal is to fight for all the good in the world. Is there anyone else who can do this shot of cardiac stimulant besides Captain America? Therefore, Fury not only hopes that Captain America will wake up as soon as possible, but also must persuade Captain America to join SHIELD. Only in this way can the shaky SHIELD stand up again. From now on, let Agent 13 look after Captain America. Don't do anything drastic after he wakes up. You must win his trust. Fury gave Hill an order solemnly. Agent 13? Isn't it too soon to let the captain get in touch with her so early? Can he accept such a big change? Hill had some doubts. I have confidence in him. Captain America is not that fragile inside, and he will have to accept it eventually. He has no choice but to accept it. Fury shook his head. Seeing this, Hill had no choice but to turn on the communicator and call Agent number 13. Carter, latest order, go to facility number 24 in area P7, wait for the person inside to wake up, take good care of him, and do your best to gain his trust. Hill, I heard about the ice flow. Was it him? A clear female voice came from the communicator. Yes, so you should understand the importance of this mission. Hill replied. I understand. Should I tell him about my aunt? Agent 13 then asked. Hearing this, Hill turned and looked at Fury, who unexpectedly nodded. If he asks, don't hide it, just tell him the truth. Hill replied. No problem. Some time later, at facility number 24, area P7, SHIELD headquarters. There was a room inside whose decoration style and furniture arrangement were very similar to those of common homes in New York in the 1930s and 1940s. A strong, half-naked man was lying on the bed in the bedroom, his huge muscles quite eye-catching. A blonde woman in her 20s stood by the bed, looking at the man's face with complicated eyes. I don't know how much time had passed, but the man on the bed's eyelids suddenly moved a few times, and there was a slight tendency for them to open. The woman was delighted when she saw this. Are you awake, Captain Rogers? At her call, Steve Rogers slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the face of a blonde girl. The long sleep made his vision blurry and he couldn't see the other person's appearance clearly. But the woman's familiar facial features still made Steve instantly think of someone he had been thinking about for decades. Page. Chapter 98. I'm sorry, Captain America, you got the wrong person. My name is Sharon. The woman's voice awakened Steve's mind, and the scene before his eyes gradually became clear. Sharon's face looked very similar to the one he remembered, but a closer look revealed the differences. Where is this? How long have I been unconscious? Where's Bucky? How far has the war progressed? Steve sat up from the bed and asked Sharon beside him urgently. Calm down, Captain, calm down. I'm not sure you're ready to know this. Sharon said solemnly. Preparation? What preparation? Steve looked puzzled. You were unconscious for a long time, much longer than you thought. Sharon gave Steve a long look. When we found you, you were frozen in a huge block of ice floating on the sea. There was only you and your shield in the ice. We did not find the whereabouts of Sergeant Bucky Barnes. After listening to Sharon's narration, Steve's expression froze instantly. That war has ended. The Allies finally won and Hydra was defeated. It has been more than 70 years since then. He seemed to have suffered a huge blow, and he muttered to himself in a daze. I know it's hard to accept. Waking up and traveling back more than half a century to the future is like a dream. But this is an established fact, Captain. You have to accept it. Sharon consoled her from the side. Cheer up, Captain. You still have a lot to learn about this era. At this point, Sharon handed Steve a notebook and a pen. I guess you don't know how to use a cell phone yet, so use this to take notes first. What is a cell phone? Steve took the notebook and asked in confusion. Don't worry, you'll know soon. We'll buy you a new phone right now if you want to go out for some fresh air. You'll let me out. Hearing this, Steve looked at Sharon in surprise. I remember you just said that S.H.I.E.L.D. is the modern agency responsible for controlling supernatural humans. I thought I was also under your control. We only control superhumans who pose a serious threat to society. You are Captain America. No one in this world will force you to control. Sharon seemed to be amused and couldn't help laughing. Now I'm beginning to believe what you just said, Miss Sharon. Steve got off the bed and looked around. Excuse me, where are my uniform and shield? In the cabinet over there, the shield and clothes are all inside. However, we customized the clothes according to your figure. After all, your old uniform was badly damaged and a little too conspicuous in this era. Sharon pointed to the closet in the corner of the room. Steve walked over and opened the door. Sure enough, he saw a neatly folded new uniform and a war-torn but still shiny shield. When Steve was putting on his uniform, Sharon turned her back and asked at the same time. Did you just now not believe that we are good people? Or did you not believe that you came to the future? I don't believe it. Steve replied calmly, don't easily believe what strangers say. This is the truth I learned on the battlefield. Although you look a lot like Peggy, it doesn't mean that I will believe that you are Peggy's niece. What's more, what you said is too fantastic. After putting on the uniform, Steve hung the shield on his back. He did not suspect that the shield might be a counterfeit because he was so familiar with the shield that even with his eyes closed, Steve could immediately recognize it as long as there was a milligram of weight deviation in the shield. At the same time, you know that whether what I said is a lie or not, you only need to go out into the world to find out. Yeah, so what are we waiting for? Led by Sharon, Steve left the shield facility. When he passed other areas in the facility, he did not show much surprise on the surface, but he was actually greatly shocked in his heart. It is no exaggeration to say that almost every step Steve took, he could see high-tech creations that were unimaginable in that era. After exiting the facility, he stood there with his eyes wide open, because he actually saw a car flying through the sky. Or should I call it a plane? But the thing had no wings at all, and from its overall outline, it looked like a car, minus the four wheels. What you just saw is called a hovercar. As the name suggests, it is a car that can fly in the air. Sharon explained, this is the latest product of the Osborn Group. It has just been on the market for a short time. It is also new to us, so many people who bought it still feel very fresh and want to show off. Recently, we can often see the hovercraft flying in the sky. Osborn Corporation? Like Stark Industries. Steve thought of a good friend of his who was also a genius inventor. Sort of, but not quite. Captain, you wouldn't believe how fast technology has advanced in the past 70 years. Organ transplants, pacemakers, disease immunity, these are things we've become accustomed to. We use ultrasound to take pictures of unborn babies to reduce the risk of miscarriage. Sharon introduced to Steve the conveniences brought by technological progress in a proud tone. Oh my God, you've missed so much. Polio? It's been conquered a long time ago. Cancer? More than 90% can be cured before it reaches the late stage. Not long ago, even humans have completely eradicated disability because a company called Osborn invented prosthetics. This technology will sooner or later allow humans to overcome all diseases. Imagine that in the future, no matter what disease you have or what injury you have, you only need to replace the corresponding part with a prosthesis and you will be healthy again immediately. By the way, the hovercraft just now was also invented by the Osborn Group. Prosthetic body. After listening to Sharon's brief explanation of what a prosthetic body is, Steve subconsciously asked, if a human's original flesh and blood body is replaced by a cold machine, can that person still be called a human being? That depends on whether you think people are defined by consciousness or by the body, Captain. My current mission is to take you around the city, not to discuss philosophical issues here. Sharon changed the subject. Steve was not a philosopher, nor was he a debate enthusiast. He didn't say much, but just followed Sharon into her car. Of course, it wasn't a floating car, just a very ordinary Ford. Chapter 99. Air and Space Museum, Museum of Natural History, National Gallery of Art, Lincoln Memorial, Walmart Skyline Plaza, Apple iPhone Store. As Sharon drove on the open road, she counted all the places she had just taken Steve to visit. Captain, although it's not as fast-changing as New York today, Washington has also changed dramatically over the years. I think today's tour is enough for you to understand the current situation. Sitting next to him, Steve was enthusiastically playing with a brand new smartphone that he had just bought less than half an hour ago, tapping on the screen carefully and a little clumsily. After hearing Sharon's words, he put down his phone and looked out the window at the street that was completely different from what he remembered. The moment I walked out of your facility, I confirmed that you were not lying. This world is no longer the world I know. I don't belong to this era. Steve said with complicated eyes. You said Peggy was your aunt. How has she been doing these years? Is she still alive? I was wondering when you would ask this, Captain. Are you sure you are ready to hear the answer? Even in this day and age, there are still very few people in the world who can live to be 90 years old. Sharon's tone suddenly became much heavier. Of course I want to know, even if it means hearing that she's dead, Steve said firmly. The good news is that my aunt is still alive. Steve's eyes lit up, and then Sharon poured a bucket of cold water on him. The bad news is that her health is very poor and she is suffering from illness. She is hovering between life and death every day. She was admitted to the intensive care unit 2 days ago and has not been released until today. No one knows whether she can make it. Captain, you should not prepare to hear the news of my aunt's death, but prepare to witness her death in person, which may happen soon. Sharon's words were like a bolt of thunder that struck Steve's heart, leaving him unable to calm down for a long time. 70 years ago, Peggy witnessed Captain America's sacrifice firsthand. 70 years later, it is Captain America's turn to witness Peggy's death. Given Peggy's current physical condition, the strong emotional impact of learning that Steve has returned may even directly lead to her taking her last breath. In a way, this was easier to accept than hearing that Peggy had passed away. If we stand in the shoes of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Sharon thinks that Captain America should not know that Peggy is still alive, and similarly, Peggy should not be told about Captain America's affairs. The best scenario is for the two of them to believe that the other is dead. But Sharon is still Peggy's close niece. She doesn't want Peggy to die without seeing Steve again and leave the world with the greatest regret. She also doesn't want Captain America to commemorate Peggy in front of a fake tombstone. Therefore, she was actually very surprised by Nick Fury's order to tell Steve the truth about Peggy, but she was also happy to complete this instruction. Steve stared blankly ahead with a dull expression, as if he was digesting the information he had just heard. Sharon didn't disturb him and drove quietly. What do you want me to do? After a long time, Steve came back to his senses and asked in a deep voice. What does S.H.I.E.L.D. want from me? We want you to join us. Sharon said bluntly. I need to see your chief. Of course, we are on our way to meet him. After a while, Sharon parked the car in front of a cemetery. Steve followed Sharon in and saw a black man wearing a black windbreaker and sunglasses standing in the middle of the cemetery. He looked around and there was hardly anyone else in the cemetery at this time. The director of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just ahead. Sharon reminded. Steve was stunned when he heard this, and subconsciously looked around again, but still didn't see anyone else. Then he understood who the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sharon was referring to. S.H.I.E.L.D., a huge international spy organization, is controlled by a black man? It seems that racial equality has really been achieved in this era, and our bloodshed and sacrifices in the past were not in vain. Steve said with great relief. This, I'm afraid it's a little different from the equality you imagined. Hearing this, Sharon's eyes moved slightly, and she thought to herself. Nice to meet you, Captain America. I'm Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Sharon's boss. Fury offered Steve his hand and introduced himself. Steve Rogers. Steve shook Fury's hand. I guess Sharon has told you a lot, Captain. I now formally invite you on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. We need you, and the world needs you too. Fury didn't exchange too many pleasantries and went straight to the point. I'm afraid I can't agree to that, Chief Fury. Steve shook his head calmly. The world has become peaceful now. My war has ended long ago. I don't belong to this era, and this era doesn't need me. I just hope to spend the last moments with Peggy, and then spend the rest of my life looking for Bucky. Since I was preserved by the glacier until now, Bucky must be able to be preserved as well. Fury calmly reminded, your survival is closely related to the super soldier serum, Captain. Bucky Barnes has never been injected with the serum. But at least his body won't rot, right? Even if he dies, I will bring his body back intact for burial. Looking at Steve's eyes, Fury knew that he was not joking, and the latter was really prepared to devote his entire life to finding Bucky. Even though Captain America has made up his mind, Fury still has a way to convince him. You are wrong about one thing, Captain. Your war is not over yet, and the peace of this world may be overturned at any time. What? Steve looked at Fury in confusion. Your old enemy, Hydra, they are still alive. What? The same words came out of Steve's mouth, but the tone was completely different. Fury told Steve that Hydra had become stronger again by parasitizing S.H.I.E.L.D. and had slowly infiltrated all levels of society around the world over the past few decades. In addition to Hydra, the Asgardian gods and minotaurs that appeared in New Mexico and New York not long ago, and the Gamma mutant Hulk that roams the world, the Earth is secretly facing countless threats. S.H.I.E.L.D. was originally created to resolve threats, but it accidentally became the cradle that nurtured Hydra. Therefore, we urgently need to reorganize S.H.I.E.L.D. We need a spiritual totem that we can absolutely trust. It sounds like you should disband S.H.I.E.L.D., Steve suggested solemnly. Of course I can disband S.H.I.E.L.D., but who will take over S.H.I.E.L.D.'s responsibilities? Even if a new department is set up to replace S.H.I.E.L.D., who can guarantee that it will not become a hotbed for Hydra or other conspiracy organizations? Fury asked back. The focus is always on you, Captain. Your joining is our greatest guarantee. And many more. At this moment, Steve's face suddenly changed and he interrupted Fury on the spot. Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades. What about the Cosmic Cube? Have you found the Cosmic Cube? Chapter 100. The Cosmic Cube is one of the very few artificially created super artifacts in the Marvel world. Its formation originated from an accidental high-energy physics experiment by the Hydra scientific research organization AIM. Its specific formation principle is unknown, and its operating logic is also unknown. Existing information shows that it can modify reality according to the user's wishes, but it is impossible to determine the extent of its modification of reality, nor is it possible to determine what conditions are required for it to make the wishes come true. The only record of its use was during World War II, when Red Skull used the Cosmic Cube to help the Axis powers acquire high-tech weapons that were far ahead of their time, causing the Axis forces to defeat the Allied forces from the very beginning of the war. If Atlantis and most mutants had not participated in the war, and if Hydra's independence from the Nazis had not become increasingly obvious in the later stages of the war, leading to the split between the Axis and Hydra, the final winner and loser of the war would probably have changed. That's right, Atlantis participated in World War II, and Aquaman Namor once joined Captain America's raiders, and the two had a deep friendship. It was just that during the post-war negotiations, Atlantis had major disagreements with the countries on Earth, and returned to the bottom of the sea to isolate itself from the outside world. All countries tacitly blocked the information about Atlantis. Even if some fragmentary information was passed down, the general public would only think it was an illusory legend. At that time, even Magneto stood up and called on mutants to resist the Nazis. It was also at that time that Professor X and Magneto formed a comradeship. Many older generation superheroes became famous during that period, most of whom were directly or indirectly related to Hydra's high technology. Whether officially acknowledged or not, after the Axis powers were defeated, the Allies seized a large number of high-tech equipment obtained through the Cosmic Cube, which was an important reason for the rapid development of science and technology around the world in the following decades. In the middle and late stages of World War II, Captain America crashed into the North Pole in order to intercept the Red Skull, who was trying to escape with the Tesseract. He saw with his own eyes that the Red Skull made a crazy wish to the Cosmic Cube in desperation to make Hydra the winner of the war. In the end, not only did his wish not come true, he was also instantly disintegrated by the energy burst out by the Cosmic Cube, and no trace of his body was left. All these experiences have made Steve fully aware of the degree of danger of the Cosmic Cube. Therefore, after hearing that Hydra has secretly continued into the new era and infiltrated SHIELD, he anxiously asked Nick Fury about the whereabouts of the Cosmic Cube on the spot. The location where the Cosmic Cube fell was very close to him. Since S.H.I.E.L.D. was able to find him, it is likely that they can also find the cube. In response to Steve's questions, Fury was quite cautious. The hiding place of the Cosmic Cube can only be checked by those with Level 10 authority. On the first day I became director, I secretly moved it to a secret base. Hydra won't be able to find it, so you can rest assured. Fury said it lightly, but Steve didn't think so. He stared at Fury and asked, "Are you secretly researching the Cosmic Cube? You have no idea how dangerous that thing is. If it falls into the hands of someone with bad intentions, it will endanger the entire world. I can assure you, Captain, that the Cosmic Cube is well preserved. I will not let anyone touch it or do any research on it," Fury promised Steve solemnly. Although Fury's attitude was very sincere, Steve did not give in and said bluntly, "It's not that I don't believe you, Director Fury, but the Cosmic Cube is of great importance. I implore you to allow me to confirm its safety with my own eyes." "I'm sorry, Captain. I can try my best to meet any of your requests, but the Cosmic Cube is not included. As you said, the Cosmic Cube is of great importance. It's best for us not to have any contact with it again. Only in this way can we ensure that the cube will not fall into the hands of Hydra." Fury shook his head without question. Steve looked at him for a long time, and finally gave up the idea of confirming the Cosmic Cube now. "You want me to join S.H.I.E.L.D. and continue fighting Hydra, right? I'll join." As soon as he finished speaking, Fury smiled in front of Steve for the first time. "It's an honor to work with you, Captain America. Sharon, from today on, you will serve as the Captain's partner and help him adapt to the current era as quickly as possible. Now, it's time to go back to the Triskelion building and announce to everyone the good news that Captain America has returned and is joining us." At this point, Sharon suddenly said with a half-smile, "I can already imagine how excited Coulson will be. He has been a big fan of Captain America for a long time." "Yes, at the same time, I can also imagine how uneasy those rats of Hydra will be after learning about this." The news of Captain America's resurrection not only excited the agents of SHIELD, but also alarmed the military. In particular, some generals who were still obsessed with recreating the super soldier plan coveted Captain America's blood sample. There was even a drama of fighting for the ownership of Captain America. The military believed that Steve was a veteran of World War II and should be under the jurisdiction of the military, while SHIELD emphasized that Steve had long exceeded the retirement age and now had the right to freely choose his position. Since he had agreed to join SHIELD, he was naturally theirs. Just as Captain America began to learn new era knowledge in SHIELD, the Hydra base hidden deep under the sea, far below the Pacific Ocean, welcomed several guests again today. The former second-in-command of the Hydra Pierce faction, and now the head of the clairvoyant John Garrett, came to Baron Strucker with 5 strong and cold-eyed subordinates. "John Garrett, you look like a lost dog now. Oh, please forgive my mistake in wording, you are already a lost dog." Baron Stark looked at the dusty clairvoyant and sneered. Although they were both Hydra, he seemed indifferent to the impending disaster of the other faction and even had an attitude of gloating. "Nick Fury has discovered us and is conducting a cleanup operation against us. Pierce's whereabouts are unknown and he may have been captured. If this continues, Project Insight will definitely fail," Garrett said solemnly. "So?" Baron Stark asked back nonchalantly. "Lord Baron, if we are destroyed, SHIELD will definitely know about this place. Since we mainly use stealth infiltration, Nick Fury will not disclose our existence to the public in order to avoid causing social unrest and being held accountable by the Security Council. But this underwater city of yours may not be known." Garrett sneered. "By then, Lord Baron, do you think you will be facing SHIELD agents who only act under the table, or an indiscriminate attack that can destroy the entire base in an instant? Do you think I will be scared by your little threat? This is just one of my data-free points. What if I give it to them to destroy?" Baron Stark narrowed his eyes slightly. "Boy, don't beat around the bush, just tell me what you want." "I want to make a deal with Lord Baron. Since Nick Fury will not expose us to the public now, it means that we have not completely lost the initiative. As long as we kill Nick Fury and his henchmen, there is still hope for the Insight project to be realized." Garrett's eyes were fierce. "I am willing to lead all the remaining subordinates to join the Baron's army. The Baron will also enjoy the fruits of the Insight plan." Project Insight? Is that Pierce's naive plan to rule the world by monitoring the entire world with a few sky carriers? Baron Stark said disdainfully. "You have been lurking in SHIELD for so many years, but as soon as your identity was exposed, you were forced into a desperate situation by Nick Fury. You are really a bunch of losers. Pushing Nick Fury to power was the biggest mistake. We didn't expect him to establish the Alpha Team, nor did we expect his counterattack to come so quickly and so accurately," Garrett said with a grim expression. "I am not interested in the whimsical Insight project, nor am I interested in you bunch of rubbish, but I am somewhat interested in that sky carrier." Chapter 101. Hearing that Baron Stark looked down on the Insight project, Garrett ordered the 5 men behind him to step forward. "My Lord Baron, I wonder if you are interested in the Winter Soldier." "Oh." Hearing this, Baron Stark's eyes moved slightly. "I know that Pierce has an elite killer codenamed Winter Soldier, who has a silver mechanical arm. Over the past half-century, he has helped you eliminate enemies in secret many times, and he also often cooperates with other snakeheads." He looked strangely at the 5 healthy men in front of Garrett. "I didn't expect there are 5 more Winter Soldiers. The super serum injected into these 5 Winter Soldiers is a modified version of Winter Soldier number 1. They have stronger physical strength than number 1, but are very prone to manic emotions. Even if they are brainwashed, there is still a risk of losing control. Therefore, these 5 Winter Soldiers have been sealed in the Siberian base, and few people know of their existence," Garrett explained. "You mean to say that you want to throw these 5 super soldiers who are at risk of losing control to me?" Baron Stark's eyes turned cold. "They only become manic when fighting fiercely. I believe that with Lord Baron's wisdom and technological strength, it will not be a problem to completely control these Winter Soldiers." Garrett's face was solemn. "Lord Baron, SHIELD has gone from being our secret helper to being the biggest threat to Hydra. As long as Nick Fury is not eliminated, the entire Hydra's plan will be impossible to achieve. At this point, Baron Strucker suddenly sneered, "Do you think you need to remind me of this? I have already arranged for Nick Fury's death." Garrett was stunned when he heard this. Humph, although Pierce's subordinates are all incompetent, working for SHIELD gives you access to confidential intelligence from all over the world, so it's still somewhat useful. Baron Stark snorted coldly and did not explain to Garrett in detail what he had arranged. At this time, he pressed a few times on the red mechanical arm on his right hand. "These are the 14 underground bases I secretly built across the United States. Keep your people away from the eyes of S.H.I.E.L.D. and gather them at these locations. Arizona, heart of the Sonoran Desert. Osborn's secret base has begun to take shape at this time, with hundreds of large buildings rising from the ground, roads connecting the buildings, and nearly 100,000 bionic people and thousands of SCVs working continuously. Initially, there were only a dozen or so factories roughly built in the desert. Now, it has truly taken shape as a city, although at present the city is only the size of a village and is somewhat too industrialized. Among them, there is an experimental facility that is very far away from the main building complex, standing alone in the depths of the desert. At this moment, Max Dillon was in this experimental facility, staring intently at the test field outside, which was separated by a layer of insulating glass. Inside the field stood a coil-shaped building more than 10 meters high. It was Harry who asked Max to be responsible for the research and development and improvement of a new type of magnetic storm coil that combined the technology of the Red Alert and Marvel worlds. A few minutes ago, Max had completed the basic testing of the magnetic storm coil and the results were quite encouraging. The magnetic storm coil is equipped with the Osborn Group's most advanced detection device and intelligent recognition system. It can detect the approach of the enemy from 5 kilometers away and automatically launch a counterattack, releasing powerful electric arcs to destroy enemy targets from a distance. The arc at the lowest power output is enough to kill or cripple a person. Even if one is lucky enough to survive, a large area of horrific burns will be left on the skin. The arc at the normal power output is enough to instantly melt the outer armor of a tank. At first glance, it doesn't sound that strong, but this is just a small-scale coil more than 10 meters high, not to mention that it is far from reaching the current maximum output. If it is a giant coil hundreds of meters high, it may be able to create a super thunderstorm enough to cover half of the city. Although the previous tests were successfully completed, the output power setting was too conservative. I want to see how powerful the coil of this size is and how much energy the coil can release at most. Max confirmed the data of the magnetic storm coil over and over again, and after confirming that they were correct, he prepared to start testing the coil's current maximum energy output. He just pressed a button on the console, and the magnetic storm coil in the test field started up, with visible electric arcs generated around the coil. Looking at these sudden arcs of electricity, Max's face unconsciously revealed an expression of intoxication. For some reason, electricity has had a special appeal to Max since he was a child. Whether it is the electric arc produced by gas ionization, the lightning rolling on the clouds during a thunderstorm, or the invisible and intangible electromagnetic field, Max is full of interest. This was also the main reason why he chose to study electrical engineering when he was in school. When Harry handed over the research and development of the magnetic storm coil to Max, he was grateful to Harry for reusing him, but at the same time, the magnetic storm technology itself was exactly the project that Max was most eager to research. These days, in order to improve the magnetic storm coil to the extreme, Max almost forgot to eat and sleep, and sometimes even went without sleep for several days and nights, so he was able to make the magnetic storm coil in front of us in such a short time. Energy has accumulated 15%, 20%, 30%, 50%. As more and more energy was stored, the electric arcs near the magnetic storm coil became thicker and thicker. The frequent flashes of electric sparks at the beginning turned into long whip-like arcs, with dozens or hundreds of arc whips surrounding the coil. The huge accumulation of electricity caused the coil to heat up rapidly, and the silver surface began to glow red. There's a creepy aura just looking at it. At this time, the energy of the magnetic storm coil has accumulated to 90%, and the state is extremely dangerous. There is a risk of explosion on the spot or being melted by high temperature at any time. But there was no fear in Max's eyes, instead they were full of excitement. He resolutely pushed the energy to the limit, transferring all the electricity into the magnetic storm coil and releasing it in one breath. Boom! In an instant, a column of electric arc shot out from the top of the coil, and countless electric arcs spread outward frantically. The energy burst from the magnetic storm coil instantly destroyed the test site, and even the insulating glass of the isolated laboratory melted under the high temperature. However, the energy of the spreading electric arc has been almost consumed by this point, and it cannot cause any substantial harm to Max, who is wearing insulating protective clothing behind him. This is theoretically the case. But the reality is that after the insulating glass was melted, the electric arc that normally radiated 360 degrees in all directions suddenly changed direction and concentrated madly towards Max. Even the huge beam of light released from the top of the magnetic storm coil shifted slightly towards Max's position. At this moment, Max seemed to have turned into a human lightning rod, attracting all the arcs. The speed of the electric arc was extremely fast. Before Max could react, countless lightning whips hit him. The insulating protective suit barely resisted for a few seconds before several holes were melted in it, which was enough for all the current to pass through. The electric current, which was enough to kill a person instantly, paralyzed Max's body, leaving him no chance to even scream.